Dogs were the first animal humans ever domesticated. Not cows, not horses, not even plants. We tamed a literal wolf before we figured out farming. And honestly, once you learn how much ancient humans relied on them, it kind of feels like the wolves did us a favor by sticking around. Let's talk about why ancient humans might not have made it without dogs. And before you picture this as some clean, wholesome boy meets wolf, boy raises wolf, happily ever after story, the truth is, scientists genuinely don't agree on how this partnership even started. There are competing theories, real academic debates, and some genuinely surprising evidence about just how emotionally attached to these animals ancient humans actually got. Let's get into it. Quick thing before we dive in. If you're new here, we cover ancient history and human origins like this every week. Real research, zero boring textbook energy. Hit follow now so you don't miss the next one. So let's start with why this partnership mattered so much in the first place. Because it's genuinely not an exaggeration to say dogs gave ancient humans a massive survival edge. In hunter-gatherer societies, dogs helped track and retrieve prey using senses humans simply don't have. Smell and hearing dramatically sharper than ours, plus speed most humans can't match. That meant hunts became more efficient, took less raw physical effort, and had a higher success rate, which directly translates to more consistent food for the entire group. And it wasn't just about the hunt itself either. The keen senses of early dogs made them incredibly useful as an early warning system, alerting a camp to approaching predators or hostile outsiders long before a human would notice anything was wrong. Imagine trying to sleep safely in the open, or in a cave with an exposed entrance, with genuinely dangerous predators wandering around at night. Now imagine having a companion with superhuman hearing and smell literally sleeping next to you, ready to sound the alarm. That's an enormous, constant safety upgrade every single night for the entire time this partnership existed. So when researchers say ancient humans may have genuinely struggled without dogs, they're not just being dramatic. A more efficient food supply and a built-in security system are both genuinely life or death advantages in a hunter-gatherer context, where both starvation and predator attacks were constant, real threats. Okay, so dogs were clearly worth it. But here's the actual mystery. How did humans and literal wild wolves, animals that should have been competing with each other for food, ever become partners in the first place? Turns out, scientists have two genuinely competing theories, and they don't agree. So theory one is genuinely one of the more surprising ideas in this whole story. It's called self-domestication, and the basic idea is that wolves domesticated themselves without humans doing much of anything on purpose. The theory goes that bolder, less fearful wolves started scavenging scraps and leftovers around human campsites, drawn in by the smell of cooking meat. The humans tolerated it because these wolves weren't attacking anyone, and over many generations, the friendliest, most tolerant wolves kept getting the steady food reward, while the more aggressive, fearful wolves stayed away entirely. Eventually, this selective pressure produced an entirely new population, friendlier, tamer, and genetically distinct from wild wolves without humans ever intentionally breeding or training a single one. But here's the pushback. Some researchers think this theory doesn't fully hold up. Wolves are large, genuinely dangerous carnivores, and skeptics argue that ancient hunter-gatherers who were actively competing with wolves for the same prey animals would have been far more likely to see wolves as a threat to eliminate rather than a group to casually tolerate hanging around camp. This camp of researchers instead favors a different idea, sometimes called the pup adoption hypothesis. The theory that humans directly captured and raised wolf pups by hand, and the specific pups that bonded well with people were the ones kept and eventually bred, while pups that stayed wild or aggressive weren't. Over enough generations, this direct, intentional process is what produced dogs. So, which one actually happened? Honestly, the real answer might be a mix of both, possibly happening more than once in different regions at different times. Some researchers even think dog domestication may have occurred independently in more than one part of the world. This is a genuinely unresolved debate in the scientific community, and it's one of the reasons dog domestication is such an actively studied topic. So, regardless of exactly how it started, there's one archaeological discovery that proves this relationship became something way deeper than just useful hunting tool. And honestly, this one's a little emotional. So, at a site in Germany called Bonn-Oberkassel, archaeologists discovered a genuinely remarkable burial dated to around 14,000 years ago. Two humans buried together with a dog. And when researchers examined the dog's remains closely, they found something that completely changes how you think about this relationship. This dog had suffered from a serious illness, likely canine distemper, and based on the pattern of the disease, would have needed weeks of intensive care just to survive as long as it did. Nursing, feeding, keeping it warm and comfortable, all without any expectation that the dog would recover enough to ever hunt or work again. Think about what that actually means. This wasn't a working animal being kept around purely for its usefulness. A genuinely sick, likely non-functional animal was cared for anyway, for weeks, by people who had no guarantee it would ever repay that effort with hunting help or protection. That's not transactional. That's the kind of care you give something you're genuinely emotionally attached to, not just a tool you're maintaining for practical output. This burial is widely considered some of the strongest early evidence that the human-dog bond, even 14,000 years ago, had already become something resembling real companionship and love, not just a mutually beneficial business arrangement. And here's a genuinely wild bonus detail. This whole process didn't just change wolves' behavior. It physically changed their bodies in a way scientists still find fascinating. So researcher Brian Hare, who studies canine cognition, popularized an idea sometimes called survival of the friendliest. The core concept is that selecting for friendliness and tameness alone, not appearance, not any specific physical trait, can trigger a whole cascade of unexpected physical changes as a kind of side effect. This is sometimes called domestication syndrome, and it shows up across multiple domesticated species, not just dogs. As early dog populations were shaped by this selection for friendliness, generation after generation, physical traits started shifting that nobody was intentionally selecting for. Splotchy, patchy coat patterns instead of a wolf's uniform coloring, floppy ears instead of upright ones, and curled tails instead of straight ones. These changes are thought to be connected to the same underlying biological systems that control fear and stress responses, meaning breeding for calmer, friendlier temperament accidentally dragged a bunch of totally unrelated physical traits along with it. So, in a very real sense, nearly every physical trait you associate with a friendly, approachable dog today, the floppy ears, the wagging curled tail, the patchy coloring, may be a side effect of thousands of years of ancient humans and wolves gradually selecting for one single quality: friendliness. Every good boy walking around today is physically shaped by an evolutionary story that started with survival, and somewhere along the way, became genuine companionship. So here's the actual takeaway. Dogs weren't just a helpful tool ancient humans picked up along the way. They were quite possibly the single most important survival partnership in early human history, providing food security and protection during some of the most dangerous stretches of our species' existence. And somewhere along that process, whether it started with self-domesticating wolves or humans raising pups by hand, this relationship became something genuinely emotional, something worth caring for even without guaranteed benefit in return. That's not ancient history staying in the past. That's the exact same bond still sitting on your couch right now, tens of thousands of years later, completely unchanged at its core. If nobody taught you the actual research behind this in school, follow. We cover ancient history and human origins like this every single week. Comment which theory you believe. Did wolves domesticate themselves? Or did humans raise them by hand? Because honestly, I go back and forth on this one. And if you want more of this same ancient partnerships that low-key saved humanity energy, check out the video on what ancient humans did all day, linked right here. Completely different angle, same kind of surprising deep dive.